The Mariners have done it. They've talked about it multiple times during this offseason, and a lot of rumors have been going around, but they have finally made a trade for Jorge Polanco with the Twins, sending over 4 not too bad a name players, including one that we got from the Giants, but let's get into it.
The Mariners pull off a trade here. They acquire, again, Jorge Polanco from the Minnesota Twins in exchange for 4 players.
Welcome everybody to Touching Bases Podcast. If you're new here, go ahead, hit subscribe, hit the bell, like the video at the very end if you do, or dislike it, and then tell me in the comments why you don't like it. But we're getting to Jorge Polanco, who we've been talking and having an eye on for a while, as we really needed to pick up a second baseman. Josh Rojas is not a bad player by any means. I don't want to go into the negative territory because I think he performed pretty well at the end of the season, but he wasn't that star player that's going to push us over the edge to get the Mariners into the playoffs. Now, Dipoto found a way to work it out, but it did take giving up some prospects and some big names that we're looking forward to in the next couple of years. So in this trade, Mariners of course take in Jorge Polanco, so he'll be a main second baseman for them, but he also has a lot of experience over at shortstop, so if something happens to JP Crawford, he can back in and fill in there. He's also had his share of experience around the field, so him being a 30-year-old utility player but really good and primary at second base is a huge upgrade, and his bat is very nice. Very, very, very nice. So I'll get into that in a second, but we can go over his contract. So he's got 2 years left on his 5-year contract, which will include 2024 and 2025. He was due $10.5 million, and then next season he'll be owed $12 million. I believe after his club option that they gave to him last season, which was about $750,000 buyout, which will be rounded into 2025. It'll bring the total to $11,250,000, and that the Mariners will have to pay. Now, the Mariners also included cash on this deal, so there's 4 players. You had Justin Topa, which is right-handed reliever, who was probably one of our better relievers besides maybe Matt Brash and a couple other guys. We did have a deep pitching. It was going to take someone to give up. He's going to do great with the Twins. I can already tell. We're probably going to hear it in the news later. I would love to have kept him. The second one was our basically 6th starting pitcher that we got from the Giants, which would have been Anthony DeSclafani. I thought maybe he might stick around, but I mean, granted, we really just wanted to trade for Mitch Haniger, but this was a nice bargaining chip in order to get somebody that we truly needed, which was a second baseman. The one I'm most concerned with is Gabriel Gonzalez. He was the number 3 prospect in our prospect pipeline. He was number 79 overall, so he was a top 100 prospect that we now have to let go. He is right now in the high A Everett Aqua Sox, so he's probably a couple of years out. I would say honestly 2 to 3 years away from actually being MLB ready, but that was somebody I was really looking for, especially for the outfield, as it's very uncertain. We have Rayleigh, we have Haniger, and we have Canzone, but none of them are stars, at least just yet. Nobody's proven themselves to be stars, and I see that Gabriel Gonzalez was someone we could develop and bring into that position, but now he is going over to Minnesota, so I really hope you have a good career over there. I don't know if you're going to get traded before you make it to the bigs or not, but we were looking forward to you coming up in the Mariners. And now, I mean, we didn't really want to wait 3 years to have somebody with a decent bat come up and play. We needed something in the now, especially during this offseason where we are so close to just making it to the playoffs. Last name I can put in there is Darren Bowen. Now, he was an unranked prospect, but I mean, just another pitcher. We have a lot of depth there. I'm not too familiar with him. He's played in, I believe, high A, and I don't know. He might have made it to AAA by now. Those are going to be the 4 that went. Now, DeSclafani had a $12 million contract, which was eating up a little bit of the money that we could play with during that trade, and I'm pretty sure that we're probably going to be giving some of that cash to cover that contract, given that it's actually more than what Polanco was getting paid. And so Twins are not a high budget team. They're working with what they got to try and be contenders, and Jorge Polanco, I think, is going to be a real good addition to Seattle, while Twins now have a couple pitchers, and they also have an outfielder that they can look forward to in a couple of years. Now, Polanco has had his history of injuries. Going back to 2022, he had a back injury, which didn't really affect him. He only missed about 12 games. And then he had a knee issue, and that took him out for a little bit, and then a hamstring issue. So he does have history of injuries, but he has still been able to perform. The great thing about him is that when he is playing, he puts up good numbers. Last year with the Minnesota Twins, he had 14 home runs, slashed a 255, 335, and 454 slugging percentage with the WRC plus of 118. Now, whether or not he's going to produce that this year or not, being at age 30, he's not too old or anything like that. He's probably right at his prime. Fangraphs is projecting him to actually have 112 WRC plus and a WAR of 2.7, and that is huge. And the Mariners really, really need that. And considering what we offloaded that was actually going to participate in the MLB this year for the Mariners, I'm pretty sure, I mean, it didn't even equate to the 2.7 WAR. So I think we're adding about a game and a half just by bringing on Polanco and knowing that he is going to be a starting bat for the Mariners over there on the right side of the field. Another positive in the projections, and home runs are home runs. I don't know if most of the time they're not entirely too accurate. Fangraphs tries to do the best they possibly can. 22 home runs, that's a nice addition that Rojas was absolutely not going to be able to produce this season. Now, Polanco really made his name back in 2021, where he knocked 33 home runs for the Twins, and that was been his highlight ever since. He was able to drive in 98 RBIs. He had 11 stolen bases. He walked only 7% of the time, but here's the key. In 2021, if he can replicate it, he only struck out 18% of the time. There's nearly half of what 3 or 4 of the major players we had last year struck out at. Does that make any sense as far as the rate goes? They were up at 30 to 35% strikeout rate. And back in 2021, Jorge Polanco was able to put up 18%. Now, in 2022 and 2023, it did go up. He went from 18% to 21% to 25%. But 25% is actually the highest that he's ever struck out in his entire career. I mean, 2023 and 2014. But that's still 5% less than the other guys. I'm talking about Teoscar Hernandez. I'm talking about Eugenio Suarez. I'm talking about Jared Kelenic. These guys, they had probably about like a 1.7 WAR last time I checked. And I mean, we have Zips that is, let me take a look. I'll take a look here directly. Zips is predicting that he's going to have a 22% strikeout rate. ATC is going to have 23. Fangraphs is at 22%. Steamer's at 22%. And Zips, again, is going to be at 22% as far as the strikeout rate. But his WAR, they're looking at 2.9, 2.5, 2.7, 2.5, and 2.4. So right between 2.5 and 2.9, let's say 2.7 wins above replacement is something that we absolutely need. Those couple of games really make a difference considering how close the AL West was last year and the year before, and might push us to that next level to get us in more than a wild card, but actually into a division race. Now, comparing Rojas to Polanco, Rojas definitely has a much higher rating when it comes to defensive fielding, but Polanco is not bad. Now, Rojas has he's in the 80th percentile as far as fielding run value. That is very good, and yeah, that's something that we wish that Polanco had. Polanco, unfortunately, is looking at around 21 percentile, which is obviously significantly worse, but it's almost like these graphs are flipped, because if you look at Josh Rojas's batting value, he's at the 21st percentile, which is terrible, which is exactly what we are trying to get away from. I mean, he's in the 7th percentile for hard hit percentage. I mean, his batting average is really low. I mean, he's honestly an asset as a fielding player. So maybe to put him in there late in the game if Jorge Polanco is, needing a break or anything like that, and we're already up by a couple runs, so that we don't have to worry about trying to add on or catch up or win the game, but we can just sustain it with our defense. That is when Josh Rojas would still be an excellent backup in this position. Whereas Jorge Polanco is in the 72nd percentile as far as batting value, which is exactly what we need. His sweet spot is at 94th percentile. 39.6% of the time, he hits the ball in the sweet spot. He makes contact, he gets runs in. He's 82nd percentile for estimated slugging percentage, which is going to be right around 482. That's what they're guessing he's going to be at this next year. Now, 25.7% for K's, it's a little high for me, but the rest of it looks so good, and it's still less than the 3 guys that we dropped off. And I'm very excited for this pickup. We absolutely needed it. One of the nice things about him is that he hits from both sides. You have a switch hitter that's going to be playing second base. Yeah, his fielding is very questionable, but he's still a good bat and he can adjust. So you're finding someone in T-Mobile Park, where it's made for left-handed batters, for him to go up there against righties and be able to take advantage of that to where he can hit home runs when he needs to. When it comes up to a left-handed pitcher, he can be a righty and he can still pull the ball and hopefully get it into the gap. I mean, from what I can see, majority of his spray chart back in 2023 was to right field, which is going to be excellent for him because most of his home runs were pulled. A couple of them were dead center, and then when he did hit a home run to left field, he hit it down the line. It was nowhere really in between. Last season, he only was in 80 games because of his injury, but during those 80 games, he was able to hit 14 home runs and 48 RBIs. Please keep that in mind. He played, for the most part, half of a season, and he was able to produce 14 home runs and 48 RBIs. If he's able to play a full season, let's say he plays 148 games with Josh Rojas giving him a break every once in a while just to prevent that injury from reoccurring, we're talking about doubling these numbers. That means 28 home runs, possibly 96 RBIs. That is such a major addition for this Mariner team, and especially at a position that we needed to fill a hole without taking anybody off the field, without worrying about DHs or who's going to play in left field or right field, because we have pretty much everybody we need for an outfield. Whether they'll perform as well as they did last year, of course, nobody knows, but the expectation is that they will. And so at this point, I'm pretty confident that the Mariners are, for the most part, on their infield and outfield, pretty set in stone. I think we can roll into 2024 with pretty good confidence and be very good contenders for a playoff position. What would I like to see? Because from basically what I'm seeing here, as far as contract and money goes, it's about balanced. I mean, we are having a little bit of money go out. Let's just say $4 or $5 million we give over to the Twins to help with Escalvani's contract. So out of the $22 million that I believe is still left over, we don't know how much cash they're giving over to the Twins for this trade, but if it's accurate, $4 to $5 million on top of everybody, you're still going to have room for about $16 million to spend on somebody per year. So what could you do with $16 million to kind of end off this season? Or would you hold off and wait until the trade deadline? Personally, terrible idea. I don't believe in waiting till the trade deadline to pick somebody up or to sign somebody. You now are in a comfortable position to just pick someone extra, someone who can produce when you need them, someone on top of Jorge Polanco who can move around the field, that can take over if there's an injury. The Mariners are in a much better position, and the Twins, I think, benefit from this as well as they get some pitching to help out with their roster. Yes, they lost a second baseman, but they have Edward Julien. Now, Edward spells his name a little weird, so I had to take a couple takes on that one. Last season, I mean, he had 511 plate appearances, and he hit 14 home runs, 7 stolen bases, batted .240, 358 OBP, and a .397 slugging percentage. The Twins will do all right. They will be fine without Jorge Polanco. It was a necessary trade for them to fill in slots as far as their bullpen goes. They added Topa, they added Esclafani, and they now have an outfielder that's in the pipeline, that's in the top 100 prospects that they'll be able to see in 2025 or 26, hopefully. That is all I have for you guys today. If you liked the video, go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and you can get the next update that I can give you on major trades or anything like that. This will be video 2 of the day. It is 6 o'clock, so let me push this out to you, and we'll go from there. Whatever, leave your comments. What do you think? Is this good for the Mariners? Is this good for the Twins? Are you a Twins fan and wish that it went a different route and they traded Polanco for somebody else? I'm ecstatic as a Mariners fan. I think this is a win-win for both of us, and hell, go Mariners. See ya.